presented by Enterprise, and welcome to the SEC, Texas and OU. A bit of a homecoming there for Steve Sarkisian, who of course spent some time at Alabama. Here's a look at how our CBS Sports and 24/7 Sports college football staff ranked all of the coaches in the conference. We're going to break down some of these names. Are they too high? Are they too low? Let's find out. And to do so, we bring in our college football crew. We got Brady, Quinn here on set, and we also bring in Chip Patterson virtually. Gentlemen, we're going to start at that #1 spot, because with no Nick Saban, it means there is a new top dog. It is Kirby Smart, who of course has had the dogs rolling over the last couple of seasons. Brady, I'll start with you here. This is a team that missed the college football playoffs last year, as we know, in dramatic fashion, but still considered one of the top teams in the country. What do you like about Kirby Smart at #1?
Well, he should be #1. Nick Saban is no longer there. Even if Nick Saban was a part of this list, I still might put Kirby Smart at #1 based on what he's done of late. And I understand, given last year, you're going to say, well, Alabama got the best of them when it mattered most. However, could have made the case maybe Georgia should have been a part of the playoff last season, but I don't want to just stick there. I want to look at what Kirby Smart has done. Kirby Smart has been able to build up this Georgia program to a point where we looked at them as equals to what was a dynasty for Alabama. I mean, Nick Saban is the greatest of all time as far as his resume, but in a short stint at Georgia, Kirby Smart already made them competitive and at some points surpassed Alabama. That's one of the reasons why I look at them as one of the best teams in the country. Will probably be playing for the national championship, but in large part because of the culture he's been able to still take from Alabama, but instill there in Georgia. And there's no doubt in my mind he's #1 on this list. And Chip, there's a gap between who #2 is. I know it might be tighter in some people's polls, not in mine. It's by far and away Kirby Smart.
#1 in the SEC with a bullet. #1 in the country with a bullet. You saw that there were 42 wins over the last 3 seasons. You know how many losses there are? 2. 42-2 over the last 3 seasons with 2 national championships. 24-0 in SEC play over the last 3 seasons. This is a standard that has been established that, yes, is in the model, is with the blueprint of what he learned under Nick Saban. But I think the fact that he's been able to put his own spin on it and his staff hires is something that I think often gets overlooked, because on one hand, sure, he's hiring his old buddies, Will Muschamp, Mike Bobo, but when the results speak for themselves, it is because of the unity that that group has together, the communication that they have. You know, this is a top to bottom effort of the Georgia football program. I am rewarding Kirby Smart for the results on the field, but I am rewarding him for the way that he is building this program up to continue to contend for a national championship every single time that they take the field in the fall. So yeah, #1, and the gap is there in the SEC, and the gap might be there also with the rest of the coaches in the country.
Yeah, as Chip mentioned, #1 in the nation is Kirby Smart. #2 in the SEC is Chip Kelly. He's #4 overall.
Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly, yes. The new Kelly. Chip
That's
Kelly.
Chip Patterson.
Chip Kelly is
Brian Kelly.
Yeah. Chip Kelly, now offensive coordinator at Ohio State, by the way. Brian Kelly, #4 overall, #2 in the SEC. And then it's Steve Sarkisian at Texas. He's #3 in the SEC, #5 overall. Brady, would you care to guess where 1 year ago, where our experts ranked him just in the Big 12?
Just in the Big 12? I don't think he was at #1, was he?
Not even close.
Probably
he was
#5.
8.
8?
8 in the Big 12 last season. So, I mean, clearly that was too low. But are we putting too much stock in one great college football playoff year?
For me, yes. I don't know that I would put, at least in the SEC rankings, what we're talking about for today's purposes, I wouldn't put him at #3. I'd probably have him at #4. I mean, first off, he lost head-to-head to Kalen DeBoer when we go back and look at last season. So there's that element of things. And really, I want to call it a one-hit wonder. Steve Sarkisian has always been a great offensive mind. We know that. It's the fact of, as a head coach, can you bring your defense along as well? And that has been the struggle for Texas up until last season where they started to figure it out. So this ranking for me is a little bit more forward thinking. I still think I'd have Brian Kelly ahead of him, as well as Kalen DeBoer. But at this point, you got to give Steve Sarkisian a lot of credit. He's built Texas to back up to be relevant again with what they did last season. Now, answering the question of whether or not they're back, I think you'd have to say this is one of those years where you feel like they're a little bit all in with Quinn Ewers, probably his last year, and what that looks like in Austin.
Yeah, I think about recruiting and roster building as reasons why I gave some bonus points or some off-field consideration to my ranking of Steve Sarkisian, because when he takes over that Texas program, he knows intimately what is going to be needed to make Texas successful in the SEC. and they've got to get better along the lines of scrimmage. And some of that was letting some players walk from the Texas program. A lot of it has been transfer portal additions, and then also the recruiting and player development. The Longhorns have been a beast under Sark when it comes to winning those high school battles, while at the same time being very, very good at supplementing that with good transfer portal additions. When I think about coaches that are able to balance being elite out of high school and in the portal, Steve Sarkisian, Dan Lanning, I mean, we're talking about some of the best in the country at being able to do that. And I think the recognition of where Texas needed to get better, offensive and defensive line, and understanding what the transfer portal and NIL could do to be able to build out your roster, just yes, forward thinking. I agree. That's part of my consideration, but being sharp enough as a head coach to understand how that can help you moving forward. Those are reasons why I think Sark probably took an even bigger jump than what we would otherwise expect just based on on-field results.
You know, he has the advantage, guys, of having coached in the SEC before, of course, at Alabama. If we look at the coach checking in at number 4, it's Kalen DeBoer, who we know is a proven winner at every step that he's made, but he hasn't played in the SEC before. So, Brady, when you look at Kalen DeBoer at number 4, what are the challenges he's going to face coming into the SEC and taking over for Nick Saban, who's no longer there? And do you like that 4 ranking?
Well, to answer the first question, it's put his own stamp on what has been, again, the greatest dynasty we've seen in college football, Nick Saban at Alabama. How do you put your own tweaks on what has been the best we've ever seen? It's a difficult task. Those are big shoes to fill. The question really, though, as far as this ranking is, if you look backwards, I think he should be ranked higher on this list for what he's done at every single stop along the way. Sioux Falls, Fresno State, UW. I mean, he's only had one season less than 10 wins. One season in his entire career. And I know, Sioux Falls is a powerhouse. UW, when he took it over, obviously was in a great spot, but still, he played to the strengths of Michael Penix. You saw the best football out of him we've seen, and ended up being a top 10 pick because of that. Ends up going to a national championship game. So I think if you're looking backwards, he's got the resume to prove that he's going to be a winner at Alabama. And if you're looking forward, he's building off the foundation that Nick Saban built. Now, again, hard to maintain at that, but if he can come anywhere close, you're talking about national championship runs still in his future with the talent that's there, his offensive mind, on top of the fact that I also think he's innovative. I think he's going to put this team in a position moving forward to be able to still dominate within the SEC. So I'd put him at number 2 on my list. And when I think when you look at what he's done and what he will do during his time at Alabama.
Yeah, coaching chops, top notch. I think that Kalen DeBoer is ready for the SEC. I don't think the SEC is intimidating to Kalen DeBoer. I think coaching at Alabama is going to be more difficult than coaching in the SEC. I think that for our rankings, we should be giving Kalen DeBoer credit for everything that he's done at previous stops and recognize, what Alabama recognized when they went to go hire him as Nick Saban's replacement, one of their top options for the job. I just think it is the internal pressure that is going to be Kalen DeBoer's most difficult challenge. Again, the SEC is not going to be intimidating because Kalen DeBoer is a winner at every single level, no matter what you throw at him. He is creative. He is innovative. He figures out the way to maximize his staff and his players. But what happens that first 10-2 season? Oh, God, heaven help us if it's 9-3. Buddy, it is going to be such a pressure cooker in Bryant-Denny Stadium when Georgia and Kirby Smart come to town. If he can handle that, then the SEC is going to be a breeze. Again, no sweat about coaching against these other teams and programs and coaches. It's going to be the internal pressure that will be the biggest challenge.
And the good news for a coach like that now is the expanded playoff where you could still get in that CFP at 10-2, perhaps even 9-3 when you're at Alabama. So we looked at tiers 1 and 2 and 3. Here's 4 and 5. And at 4, we see Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko, kind of like a Kalen DeBoer. I mean, he's really had to work for it. He's worked his way up. He got the opportunity at Duke, not an easy place to win. We got to see them firsthand a couple of times last year against Florida State and your Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Brady. I mean, a well-coached team and a guy who has experience in College Station as a defensive coordinator. How do you feel about his prospects?
Yeah, no, I think he's going to be a great head coach. I mean, he's going to bring the defense. They've got the talent, too, there in College Station to be just that. The question really becomes, how does he manage and handle it, overseeing all of it? That's the biggest question mark. That's probably one of the reasons why he's ranked where he is, because at least as far as his defensive prowess, he's one of the best defensive minds in college football. And I do think this will work at Texas A&M moving forward. There's a reason why they brought him back now in the head coaching capacity. But when we're talking about this list, I mean, names that I'm focusing on, I'm looking at Eli Drinkwitz. Like that was way too high for me as far as the 1 year that he's had so far at Mizzou. And I know it looked good when you beat Ohio State in the bowl game, but that Ohio State team was a shell of itself. That was a bit of an overreaction when you compare to Lane Kiffin, Mark Stoops, guys who've taken programs that haven't had the sort of success that they're bringing to those programs right now. There should be quite a bit of a gap there. You know, is Mike Elko a part of that group? We'll see. I think as far as his defensive prowess, maybe. But again, there's going to be some learning curves along the way, too, of joining an SEC that just got tougher with the addition of Texas and Oklahoma. That's really made, I think, for teams like Texas A&M who are trying to get over the hump, get over the top, and be amongst the likes of the Alabamas and Georgias. It's made it that much more difficult with 2 quality programs being added to the group.
Are the adults in charge now at Texas A&M? Doesn't it feel like we could see a bump just because the adults are in charge? I mean, Mike Elko had the Duke Blue Devils more well-prepared and ready to go for the Clemson Tigers than almost any other opponent that Clemson faced during last year's campaign. The Blue Devils were down to their third-string quarterback, a future investment banker named Grayson Loftus, and he was still able to find ways to win hard-fought games on the road. I just think that it's so interesting that we've got, you know, this hard-edged, you know, South Brunswick, New Jersey, Mike Elko going into College Station. But guess what? Like, Nick Saban wasn't a perfect fit at Baton Rouge or down there in Tuscaloosa coming from West Virginia. Sometimes it is that fish out of water that ends up making everything click. And of course, Elko, from his time as defensive coordinator, has done enough to ingratiate himself within that College Station community to get the support that he's going to need. Texas A&M has always been able to get talent. The blue chip ratio says that the last 4 years, 70% of their players were 4-star or 5-star compared to 3-star or lower, but they weren't able to deliver the results. I think competent coaching is going to be able to be worth a win or a win and a half more on top of what we've been able to see from the Aggies. So I do think Mike Elko is going to be a great hire and going to be able to stabilize things for the Texas A&M football program.
I definitely, you know, you saw from the A&M fans, he wasn't the flashy pick maybe that they wanted going into it, but to both of your points, well, only up from here if you're checking in just outside of that top 10. If we look at number 11, it's OU in Brent Venables' first season in the SEC. The team that was number 11 last year, the coach, I should say, was Billy Napier at Florida. He has only continued to drop, gentlemen. He now checks in at 13 on this list after what's been very disappointing in the SEC, just 6 conference wins over the 2 years that he's there. Brady kind of feels like he is on thin ice there in Gainesville.
You're saying he's not going to be a part of this list next year?
I mean, at this rate, you're dropping. I mean, you're not winning. You're not winning the fan base either.
With this schedule they've got, I don't know that there's going to need to be cause or anything else that's gone on off the field for them. I think they could play through the schedule and have a hard time being able to get 5-6 wins. I mean, that's the reality of how difficult the path is ahead for Florida. Look, Billy Napier took over a program that's trying to rebuild itself, and it's going to take some time and patience to do so. I just don't know if the fans there in Gainesville have patience for him to do it. I think it's been hard. You mentioned only 6, conference wins over the past couple of seasons. It's tough to then justify keeping and holding on to this. I do think he's a good coach. I do think he's a program builder. It's just going to take a lot longer than what they're buying into. And Chip, looking at the schedule this season, there's no way. There's just no way that he makes it through this thing and they, I guess, surprise us as one of the dark horses in the SEC with the additional competition of Texas and Oklahoma, like I just mentioned a moment ago, but having to compete with the likes of the Georgias, of the Alabamas, of the LSUs, of the Texas A&Ms within this conference.
Yeah, Brady just read some of the top programs in the SEC. He also read off Florida's schedule. I mean, they play 11 power conference teams. There's not another team in the country that plays 11 power conference teams in 2024. I check out FanDuel Sportsbook, make every moment more. What's their win total? 4.5. 4.5 is the odds maker's expectation for what Florida is going to be able to do against this schedule. But if we really want to detail where things went sour for Billy Napier and why he's dropping in these rankings, It's not because of the recruiting mishaps of, Jaden Rashada specifically, but I think it is the bigger picture narrative of Florida being the inability to close. The fact that you get early commitments from a lot of blue chip guys and then they end up decommitting, flipping elsewhere. The fact that Florida has a hat on the table, as 24/7 Sports is going live to a big signing day press conference and the Gator hat is not being chosen. Florida gets out to these great starts and they jump up in the rankings, but as they lose commitments and fail to add to those good starts, they find themselves slipping, going in the negative direction the closer that we get to signing day. So Billy Napier, you thought that based on his upbringing would be able to apply a type of recruiting prowess that maybe Florida fans didn't feel like Dan Mullen was giving him. But I have seen that this particular coaching regime has not been able to get the ball across the goal line when it comes to the recruiting trail, and that has been the downfall of the Gators under Billy Napier, in my opinion.
They start with Miami. They finish with Florida State. Those are two non-conference games, and then between you got Georgia and Texas and Tennessee and A&M and LSU and Ole Miss.
You missed Sanford in week 2.
Sanford and Maine. Sanford and Maine. You got 2 wins.
Sanford, Maine. You do have Mississippi State as well, but it's on the road. So tough sledding this season for Florida. Full rankings, by the way, of the SEC coaches at CBSSports.com. Cover 3 podcasts, everything you need to be locked in to the latest in college football. Latest episode taking a look at the Arkansas Razorbacks and their chances for improvement with the re-addition of Bobby Petrino on the staff for Sam Pittman.